Before the world knew Steve Jobs as a genius, he was just a young man with a dream, working inside a small garage. This is the incredible true story of failure, comeback, and innovation that changed the world forever.
February 24, 1955. A baby boy is born in San Francisco, California. His name is Stephen Paul Jobs. He grows up in a quiet suburban town called Mountain View, a place that would one day be renamed the most famous neighborhood in the world, Silicon Valley. From the very beginning, Steve is different. As a young kid, he and his father spend hours together in their family garage, taking apart radios, televisions, electronic equipment, and putting them back together. His dad has a special gift. He makes Steve feel like every machine has a secret. And if you're patient enough, brave enough, and curious enough, you can unlock it. That garage is Steve's first classroom. And the lessons he learns there, confidence, creativity, the belief that ordinary things can be made extraordinary, those lessons never leave him. But school is a different story. Steve is bored. He's so smart, so restless, so full of energy that he becomes the class prankster just to feel something. His fourth grade teacher actually has to bribe him to pay attention. He tests so high that the school wants to skip him ahead to high school. His parents say no. They want him to have a normal childhood. But normal? Normal was never really in Steve Jobs' vocabulary. Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. Steve Jobs. After high school, Steve enrolls at Reed College in Portland, Oregon. It sounds like the beginning of a great success story. Except, 6 months in, he drops out. Not because he can't handle it, not because he fails, but because he looks at the money his working-class parents are spending, every single dollar they saved for years, and he feels guilty. He doesn't know what he wants yet, so he leaves. But here's the part most people don't know. Steve doesn't actually go home. He stays on campus. He sleeps on floors, he eats by returning Coke bottles for spare change, and he quietly sneaks into the classes that actually interest him for free. One of those classes is calligraphy, the art of beautiful handwriting, beautiful lettering, beautiful fonts. At the time, it seems completely useless, just a curious young man following his gut. 10 years later, that calligraphy class becomes the foundation of the beautiful fonts on the Macintosh computer, something no other computer in the world had ever had. The whole world would fall in love with Apple's design, and it all started with a class that made 0 sense at the time. Steve would later say, "You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward." Steve Jobs. Back in high school, Steve meets another guy named Steve Wozniak. Where Jobs is the dreamer and the salesman, Wozniak is the engineering genius. The two of them spend hours together obsessing over digital chips and circuit boards, back when almost nobody even knew what those things were. Wozniak can build computers that nobody else can. Jobs can look at those computers and see what the whole world is about to need. Together, they are absolutely unstoppable. In 1976, the two Steves start a company. They call it Apple Computer. Their first office? Steve's family garage. Their startup money? Steve sells his Volkswagen bus. Wozniak sells his scientific calculator. That's it. That's all they have. And they get to work. They build their first computer, the Apple I, and sell it for $666 each. That first run earns them around $774,000. Not bad for two guys in a garage. Then comes the Apple II. Sales explode, up 700% to $139 million. The world is starting to pay attention. And in 1980, Apple goes public on the stock market. By the end of the very first day of trading, the company is worth $1.2 billion. Two guys, one garage, a dream that changed the world.
But success has a funny way of getting complicated. Apple keeps growing. Jobs brings in a big-time CEO, John Scully from Pepsi Cola. More executives, more corporate structure, more professional management. On the surface, it looks like the right move, but underneath, things start to crack. New products struggle. IBM surpasses Apple in sales. The company starts losing its edge, and the board starts to lose confidence. Not in Apple, but in Steve Jobs himself. In 1985, the Apple board makes their decision. Steve Jobs, the man who founded the company, who built it from nothing in his parents' garage, who gave everything he had to make it great, is pushed out, fired, gone. He is 30 years old. Can you imagine that moment? Being shown the door by the company you created with your own hands? Most people would collapse. Most people would walk away and never look back. Steve Jobs is not most people. He says, getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. After leaving Apple, Steve doesn't disappear. He gets hungrier. He starts a new company called Next, pushing the limits of software and computing, building for the future, even when the world isn't ready yet. And then, in 1986, he does something that looks completely random. He buys a small, struggling animation studio from the filmmaker George Lucas. He pays $10 million for it. Then he invests $50 million of his own money into it. Nobody thinks this makes sense. Nobody believes in it. That studio is called Pixar. Over the next 2 decades, Pixar produces some of the most beloved movies in history. Toy Story, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Monsters, Inc. Movie after movie that makes the whole world fall in love. Pixar earns over $4 billion. And in 2006, Disney buys it, with Steve Jobs as the single largest individual shareholder. Meanwhile, Apple is struggling without him. Bad products, falling sales, a company that has lost its soul. In 1996, Apple buys Next for $429 million. And with that deal, they get back the one thing they have been missing all along. In 1997, he returns as CEO. He sets his own salary at $1 a year. He doesn't need the money. He needs to win. He rebuilds the team. He cuts weak products. He focuses Apple like a laser beam. And then, one by one, he changes the world. The iMac, the iPod, the MacBook Air. And then, on January 9th, 2007, the iPhone. The device that redefined what a phone could be, what technology itself could be. Competitors scramble to copy it for years. None of them ever quite match it. Apple becomes the most valuable company on Earth. From a tiny garage to building Apple into one of the biggest companies on Earth, Steve Jobs proved that one idea can change the future. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and see you in the next inspiring story.